Well, the decision occurred after Fraserburgh and Longhope lifeboats were lost with the crews. No, they weren't self-righting.
They weren't before, but
They were
changed
Watsons.
after the
Because in those days, you see, it's all right saying it's going to self-right, but for argument's sake, off Lowestoft, the mast would have stopped you in places. Going over a sandbank, if you'd gone over it would have stopped you going right over. So they decided, the institution, to change all into self-righting boats. And this is what they've done ever since.
airbag on the top.
Initially they put an airbag, so if you went over, the air filled up with and brought you upright. Well, yes and no. I mean, anyone who's been to sea, if he wasn't scared at one time, then he shouldn't have been there.
Right.
Because it's sometimes horrendous. So I've been around Cape Horn a couple of times, and the Cape of Good Hope, which the Cape of Good Hope, damn sight worse than Horn. 60 foot high.
60 foot high wave?
Yeah. No, they're small seas because it's so shallow, the North Sea. It's an average depth of about 90 foot.
Is it really?
And close here, it's less than 20 foot. You can walk, get over the side and walk in places, the home sand and, yeah.
Could you...
Always looked on Peter, he was the second coxswain. I looked on Peter as the mate, because I'm an ex-merchant seaman, basically. And so I looked on him as in charge of the deck. So I'd place the boat there and leave it to Peter and the crew to sort it out. Coxswain mechanic, because I was in charge of the machinery. That was not a good idea, I thought it was. But we were called out to a American aircraft. They'd collided, and they were about 45 miles. Of course, nowadays that seems nothing, but in those days we only did 8.5 knots, which is about 9 miles an hour, not much faster than walking. and we'd searched and searched, and we were coming home. And of course, I'd been on the pilot boat the night before all night, so I had 2 nights without any sleep. And Peter was on, and then suddenly the radar went, the radio went, the wireless, we called it wireless in those days, and then the ruddy engine stops. Now I've got to sort all this out because I'm a mechanic.
That was when the tanks broke, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Fuel tanks.
Yeah, that's right.
We were slammed about.
We were slammed so much that the end of the fuel tanks had come out and all the fuel had gone into the bilges, but because the watertight bulkheads in the lifeboat are so tested, we didn't get any smell or anything, but all the fuel from one tank had emptied, and it was empty. So I then got to sort it out and connect to 2 tanks to one, two engines to 1 tank, and we got home just. Well, she was running the Woodbine Caff. It's a caff in Suffolk Road.
Right.
Still there.
Still there?
It must be one of the oldest continuous caffs in Lowestoft. We used to do 100 dinners a day. Every day. Mm-hmm. I was a washer-up.
Chief cook and bottle washer.
Bit of everything. The strange thing today is this. She was in the St John's ambulance. She was a nurse. They were all volunteers. They didn't get paid, same as the lifeboatmen. They didn't get paid. And the only ambulance we had was the St John ambulance. They had a paid driver but he was a kind of civil servant. And then they went on strike when the National Health Service came in, and they wouldn't go out with the nurses because, believe it or not, and this is true, when the phone used to ring, I used to pick it up, oh God, Joan, it's yours. And she said, she'd then get up, dress in a uniform, go down below and wait for the ambulance to pick her up to go and see the casualty. Well, one of the best boats I come across was the Americans designed a Coast Guard cutter, and she could do 14 knots, which was a lot faster than 8 knots. And she only drew 3'6". Well, I suppose that's a metre nowadays. That was the depth. So that when she's in the water, the depth is only 3'6" or a metre. And she was fast. And she was very good seaboat. No, it's a different design altogether.
Right.
Yeah, totally revolution. You see, the old Watsons were basically built sailing boats. They were good sailing boats. But that means they had a bit of a keel and they were very stable. That's what they did for years here. Because Lowestoft is one of the oldest stations in the country. Actually, Nelson contributed to this and the average lifeboat, £5, which was a lot of money in those days, to Nelson.
God bless. The Queen, God bless her.